Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at a deeply intimate, incredibly profound piece of writing by D.H. Lawrence. We're going to name the title of the poem right away. It's called A Baby Asleep After Pain. It's a stunning, quiet observation of vulnerability, and our entire goal today is to really understand that heavy, hushed aftermath of a child's suffering. As a drenched, drowned bee, just sit with the atmosphere of that opening fragment for a second. Think about the sheer exhaustion, that complete and total depletion of energy. That is exactly where Lawrence drops us, right from the very first syllable. No warm-up, just right into the heaviness. Section 1, A Baby Asleep After Pain, Naming the Moment. Okay, let's dive into this, because naming the title of the poem as A Baby Asleep After Pain actually does something super deliberate for us as readers. Before we even touch on the metaphors or the rhythmic structure of the piece, the title itself centers our analysis entirely on this incredibly delicate, vulnerable moment of human experience. It tells us exactly where we are, and honestly, more importantly, when we are. We're not in the middle of a crying fit. We aren't in the absolute chaos of trying to soothe a child. We are in the immediate, quiet aftermath. By naming this specific aftermath, the poem physically and emotionally grounds us right from the start. It sets up this narrative arc that totally mirrors a sinking feeling. You know that sudden crash after intense pain or panic? That drop in adrenaline? The title prepares us for a piece that's not about action at all. It's about gravity. It's about settling, and that intense, quiet relief following a storm. Section 2, The Drowned Bee Metaphor, Nature's Exhaustion. This transitions us to the first major theme, exploring the central imagery that bookends the entire poem. Lawrence doesn't just tell us the baby is tired, he uses this really striking natural metaphor to show us exactly what that tiredness looks and feels like. He writes that she hangs numb and heavy from a bending flower. And you've got to wonder, why choose this specific state for an insect to represent a sleeping baby? Well, think about a bee. A bee is usually buzzing, frantic, super light, endlessly energetic, kind of like a toddler, right? But here, the bee is totally incapacitated. It's not just resting on the petal, it's hanging there, completely defeated by the elements, actually pulling down the very flower that's supporting it. It's just a brilliant visualization of a child who has finally surrendered to sleep after a bout of intense crying. So the crucial point is how these specific words isolate the feeling of exhaustion. Listen to the sheer weight of them. Drenched, drowned, numb, heavy. These aren't just your standard adjectives. They are literal physical states of being pulled downward. I mean, water adds physical weight to something that's normally light, right? So by using words like drenched and drowned, Lawrence perfectly mirrors a physical descent. The baby's energy has been completely washed away by her own tears. It leaves her absolutely numb and heavy in the caregiver's arms. Section 3, Physical versus Emotional Weight. The Shift. This is where we see a distinct thematic shift from the insect metaphor to the actual physical state of the child. Now, what's really interesting about this juxtaposition is the stark contrast. On the left side, we have the child's baseline. She has always seemed so light. And that tracks, right? We expect babies to feel buoyant, almost weightless when we hold them. But compare that against her current state over on the right. But now she is wet with tears and numb with pain. The pain and the tears have literally added mass to her. It's such a profound observation by Lawrence that suffering actually has a tangible physical weight to it. I want you to really visualize the touch, the sight, and the weight detailed in these lines. Let's completely deconstruct this sensory language. Brown hair brushed with wet tears. You can almost feel that damp, matted texture right against the speaker's cheek. Soft white legs hanging heavily over my arm. There's absolutely zero muscle tension here. It's just complete limp surrender. Even her hair, which normally floats, is now sinking heavily, reaching downwards. Literally every single physical detail Lawrence provides is pointing toward the ground, totally dragged down by gravity and exhaustion. Read this line with me, and I really want you to feel the cadence of the words here. Swinging heavily to my movement as I walk. You can actually feel the slow, methodical, rocking pace of the caregiver walking across the floor. The rhythm of the poem itself slows right down here. It perfectly matches those swinging, heavy, deeply exhausted steps of a parent just trying to keep their child asleep. Section 4. The Burden of Love, Emotional Gravity. Now we shift our focus from the physical weight of the child to the massive emotional weight placed onto the caregiver. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens in those exhausted steps. Lawrence writes, "My sleeping baby hangs upon my life." Wow. I mean, the child isn't just hanging over an arm anymore. She is hanging upon a life. That physical clinging we saw earlier completely transforms in this moment into a profound, all-encompassing emotional dependency. The caregiver's very existence has basically become the structural support for this fragile, exhausted little being. Lawrence writes, like a burden she hangs on me. But I want to be really careful with how we frame the definition of burden here. This is not a burden in the negative sense. It's not an unwanted chore or some sort of annoyance. In the context of this poem, this burden is born entirely out of deep love and shared exhaustion. It is the inescapable, profound, physical and emotional weight of taking on someone else's sorrow. You carry their weight because you love them. But, that doesn't mean the weight itself isn't profoundly heavy. Let's move to this next line and see how this builds, bringing our narrative full circle. Lawrence takes us right back to that opening metaphor. As the wings of a drenched, drowned bee are a heaviness and a weariness. But notice the nuance here. It is no longer just the baby who is the drenched bee. That heaviness and weariness are now completely shared between the child and the parent holding her. They are locked together in this quiet aftermath of pain. The absolute brilliance of Lawrence's poem is that it captures this universal truth about empathy and love. It shows us that to genuinely comfort someone in pain, we kind of have to be willing to bear their physical and emotional weight ourselves. So as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with this question to reflect on. When was the last time the weight of someone else's sorrow became your own? Thank you so much for exploring this beautiful piece of literature with me today. Keep seeking out those deeper meanings, and I'll see you in the next explainer.